everyone. Welcome back to The Mill. I am your host, the founder and CEO of Mill & Co., Rachel Ballatori. Today, I'm joined by a wonderful guest, Nagaraj Bukkapatnam. So honored to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. I'm very excited to talk about a lot of stuff about data analytics and AI.
Absolutely. Just a quick intro for those who aren't as familiar with Nagaraj. His pronouns are he, him, and his. He's the founding director of the Center for Business Analytics at the University of New Hampshire. He's responsible for fostering university industry partnerships through value co-creation and capture. Nagaraj focuses on enabling future technologies in experiential learning and applied research. He serves as an advisor for companies on go-to-market strategies and disruptive technologies. He's developed an AI-based products in customer intelligence and engagement, and his areas of expertise include applied and artificial intelligence, market analysis, product innovation, and design. Quite an impressive background.
Thank you.
So tell me about your journey. What brought you into business analytics?
It is pretty fascinating. I started my career as a fingerprint analyst. So my job was to gain insights from fingerprints that are captured in a set environment or from a crime scene. And I try to develop an algorithm that can match those two. So that's how my career started. And over last few years, I did a lot of work in. I got fascinated with speech recognition. So the whole how can we make systems understand speech was my focus area. So developed some innovative solutions using what is called as the statistical language modeling. There was no AI at that time. But in all fairness, my official entry into the world of data and analytics happened around 2003, if I may say, when my wife was getting a PhD. And she introduced me to two books written by Dr. Edward Tufte and Dr. Colin Ware. And those books really impressed me. And the most interesting fact between those two is Dr. Ware established the Visualization Research Lab. Now it's called the Data Visualization Research Lab at UNH. Little did I know that I read a book about the book that he wrote in 2023, and I would be working with this research lab on different collaboration opportunities.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Serendipitous. And what brought you to UNH?
So before I joined UNH, I used to run my consulting company that was focused on helping organizations implement AI-based technologies. So when people talk about technology, they think I buy a software or I buy an application and implement it in a company. That was 20 years ago, where software was focused on solving specific problems in functional areas. Say, for example, you had some software, an application or tool for marketing, HR, so on and so forth. But if you look at the current applications, they can do all the things that a business needs, right? So there's a shift in terms of what you buy, how you buy. There's also a shift in terms of how you want to engage with your employees, right? It's not as simple as I buy an application, everybody starts using it. So there's a cultural shift, there's a mind shift. So my job was to help companies doing that. And I was also working with Rutgers Business School, supporting their establishment of Center for Market Advantage. And one of my professors saw the LinkedIn post and said, Nagaraj, this is a good opportunity. Go ahead and apply. And 2 hours later, I applied for the job and rest is history, as they say.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's really cool. And for those who aren't familiar, I'd love to learn a little bit more about your specific role at the Center for Business Analytics at UNH and just how the department as a whole functions.
Absolutely. The Center for Business Analytics acts more like a strategic consulting agency. We use data and analytics to solve business problems. We pride ourselves being a multidisciplinary organization where I have students, analysts, researchers, faculty members coming from different backgrounds. We all come together to solve these challenges. As far as my work is concerned, my job is to engage with companies, explore avenues for collaboration, I love to work with students, mentor them on various projects. And last but not the least, we support the research and grant opportunities for faculty members.
Mm. That's pretty incredible. And, I know, speaking as a former young person who was in college, it's really exciting to have, even at a master's level, it's really exciting to have opportunities that put you in real life application. I think that's a lot of an area where a lot of universities maybe fall a little short, is that it's very focused on the syllabus, execute, do your homework, take the test. But you and I both know that that's not what real life is. We know that that's not what business is. We know that's not what drives entrepreneurship. It's more about being able to be flexible. And I think it's such a gift that the University of New Hampshire is offering this type of hands-on, real-world application experience to students. It's amazing.
You're absolutely right. I think a lot of credit goes to the senior leaderships who had the vision
Yeah.
of putting a center together, number one. Second
Right.
thing is, as you know, the center was started ground up. So we started like any other company, and we experimented with a lot of things. And I'm very happy that the senior leadership supported us throughout this process.
Yeah.
Lastly,
Yeah.
when you talk about business, experiential opportunities or skill development opportunities for students,
Mhm.
a lot of the centers act as like sort of an academic extension of an academic or a research unit.
Mm.
We took a different approach. Our primary job is to serve our businesses. Period. End of the story.
Yeah.
Everything else in terms of workforce development, in terms of skill development, experiential learning, collaboration, everything, they are all byproduct of this approach.
100%. And that's, we have an internship program at Mill& Co. Um, and our job description is really broad because we're looking for people that are hungry, motivated, disciplined, organized. The skills that they get out of that are incredible and can be applied to really any industry, any job. But that's not why they're coming. That's not why we're looking to bring them in. We're giving them client work. We're giving them work that is representative of our organization, real hands-on things that matter. And I think that if more organizations and more universities in particular can incorporate that into their everyday function for students, I mean, you're just building such a stronger future workforce.
I'm glad you brought this out because when I ask companies about what are they looking for in a student, the most common answer is curiosity.
Mm,
They never talk about programming languages or anything like that. So what you are talking about in having a broad perspective. So in terms of, first of all, understanding what the business needs are, I think that this also paves way for developing core competencies in a student, right? They'll
yep,
be able to better understand what they want to be or what they don't want to be.
right. Yeah, I say this to every intern and frankly every employee that comes through our doors, which is Mill& Co may not be the end of the road for you, but I hope that it's the start of a road you didn't anticipate. Because so many students get out and have this pressure of like, okay, I have to be this, I have to be in this specialized field, I have to do this, I have to have these degrees. And in fact, what I have found in my years of experience now is having curiosity and passion to me has outweighed any other experience or specialty, schooling that I could have received because I would have just been pigeonholing myself into, well, I focus in this tunnel and that's all I look at.
I'm glad that is working out. And I can see you and I meet at various events. I can see what you do, right? When you even like one of the reasons I'm very closely associated with Mill& Co. and I try to like establish this sustained partnership with you is when you talk about giving opportunities to students, when you talk about community engagement, you take it to the next level, right? And as you rightly said, it's about passion, it's about persistence, right? It's not about defining a bunch of rules, a vision statement, and just trying to put everything in through that lens.
Right. Yeah, I could not agree more. And if you're able to share, what are some projects or initiatives that are happening right now at the Center for Business Analytics?
Hmm. Quite a few, quite a few.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I think the most important project I have taken up is to get the center out of the startup mode. We want to be
Mhm.
more established, more
Mhm.
strategic. As you know, we work with every single entity under the UNH umbrella, so we want to be more impactful. So that's one. The second focus area has been enabling industry university collaboration focused on, or I'll repeat for a second. So the second area of focus has been fostering this university industry collaboration
Mhm.
pertaining to grants and grant opportunities. So, for example, in the past, when people talked about NSF grants, the common conception is that uh, this is done by academicians. You publish a lot of research and you're done with it, right? It's not like that anymore. At somewhere like down the line, they expect this joint partnership. So whatever is being built or developed is application ready. So we are focused on that.
Yeah, that all makes sense, and I think it's a common challenge for businesses that are trying to move from that startup mentality and functionality into more of a established business. What I would challenge you with, though, that I've experienced, and we're 7 years into business now. I love having that kind of startup grit, that everyone has this kind of like passion and accountability and ownership. Um, but you implement things like process, organization, structure, templating. Those are kind of the things that move you away from that startup mode because you have things that create efficiency and expediency. But don't lose that grit. I think that's really an important piece that a lot of companies, in my opinion, as they grow bigger and bigger, lose. And I think that's such a critical part of what makes the Center for Business Analytics what it is.
Thank you for that note. You are absolutely right. We don't want to lose the day one mentality, as they call, right? And Amazon. So we will try to keep that. Thank you.
Yeah. And so if there's a business that's watching this and, or a potential industry partner, and they're wondering, is the Center for Business Analytics right for my business? What are some challenges or things that you look for or conversations that you've been having with prospective partners?
First of all, there is no right or wrong business. Every business is right for Center of Business Analytics. And as I said, the common perception is when I talk about business analytics, they they think, oh, we have few more years before we have the data, we become a data-driven organization, and so on and so forth. But that's not the case, right? What we are saying is the opportunity is now, right? So we talk to a lot of companies ranging from startups to multinationals, and they have several questions, right? If a startup is building a product, the question they have is there a market for that, right? If there is a market, who do we go after? How do we price this? So those are the questions we answer. If it's an established company, some of the questions we try to answer is, do we have the right process in place? Can we optimize it? What resources do we need? Um, One of the areas that we also not try to be tactical in the sense if when a business walks through the door, we never say, "Oh, you built a great platform. This is what the market says. Let's meet in 3 years." That's
Mhm.
not the approach. The approach is they walk in, we try to understand what's the potential. So there are times when the company walks in, they have this phenomenal product or a platform, and we say, you know what, this is a great offer, great pitch for an CBIR or SBIR grant or an NSF grant, right? So we try to help work with the company and make those connections and draft and help them draft the proposal and submit. So it can be a simple idea, it can be a complex strategic problem. We try to answer. Uh, that.
Yeah. Well, and it shouldn't be cookie cutter. In the
Definitely
same
not.
way that wealth management shouldn't be cookie cutter per person, because the company is different, the people are different, the industry is different, their appetite for technology adoption is different, and so having something that's much more customizable and personalized to the organization is a huge selling factor. And in fact, that's how we run our business, is that certainly there are things that we do that are the same in terms of our delivery, but the approach is almost always different.
That makes sense. You're absolutely right. When that
Yeah.
you have to be like genuinely interested in an organization to make a difference.
Yeah.
And I have seen that with you, right? When we spoke with a few of the clients, uh, what you have delivered or what the approach you have taken, we never start off with like, what can I sell? We always
Right.
start off with, how can we serve, right? So I think that difference keeps the organization relevant for a long time.
Yeah. When we meet with prospective clients or even with clients we've been working with for 5, 6 years, um, the way that we sell ourselves is, what value can I bring to you today? Because if you think about it, value is this like intangible thing that you can't really put a price on. It's priceless. To bring value to someone, certainly I can give them the tangibles and the deliverables that they're asking for in the scope of work, but every other agency can do that. Any other organization, any other university can just deliver what's on the piece of paper. When you step up a level and start to deliver value, to me, that's a difference maker in a really successful business versus a company that's just kind of plugging and chugging and hope that the companies that they're working with don't notice, that they're actually just taking things at face value.
That's a great point because the definition of value changes over time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And personally, what I think is the most valuable asset we all have is time.
Mm.
If you are able to spare your time for businesses and really serve them and meet them where they want, I think the outcomes would be phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that you can teach that to young folks early before they've entered the workforce even. I mean, I'm excited for the future of our workforce, especially the students coming out of UNH. I mean, I think you're really you're paving a new future. And speaking of the future, AI has been making a huge splash. What are some challenges that you're seeing with businesses that the Center for Business Analytics works with when it comes to integrating AI solutions into their business operations? And then subsequently, what are the biggest opportunities that you're seeing for AI across different industries of businesses?
I think one of the one of the biggest challenges that I have seen companies facing is understanding the value of AI because it is evolving so fast in so many directions. It can do so many things. So businesses are always, where do I start?
Mm.
That's the first question they ask.
Mm.
Once they are able to identify that, then the second thing is, what skill or what resources do I need to implement AI within our organization? And how do I measure the success of that? The third, as I said, the culture of the organization,
Mhm.
right? AI changes the whole fabric in terms of what it can do and how it can support. So how does the organization evolve to meet those needs? So these are the three challenges I have seen.
Yeah. It's
And
interesting as you describe that. When we work with clients and take them through our blueprint strategy, which is where we start to lay that foundational conceptual brand, a lot of companies will come to us and say, we need social media. We need a new website. We need collateral. In the same way that I assume they come to you and say, we need a software. We need this. And where we actually start is at the root cause, which is, but why do you feel that you need these things? What's the reason behind you wanting to have these things? And then if we can get down to the root of the challenge, the business challenge, but they're thinking that social media is going to solve that when in fact it's email marketing, for example. We've found that we've been able to guide clients in a much more efficient and cost-effective way by identifying the root cause. And it sounds like you're kind of describing the same thing for how the Center for Business Analytics operates.
absolutely. And the thing is, there is also this fear of missing out, right? If they
Mhm.
are not adapting a technology, are they going to fall behind?
Yeah.
And we have to be very cautious in terms of what we recommend and what we don't. And
Right.
you are absolutely right in the sense that organizations are built over time. There's a lot of institutional knowledge. There are so many resources that are irreplaceable, right? And so leveraging them and augmenting with technology is how I portray instead of replacing everybody and putting a big AI system on others.
Yeah. And so the organizations that you help implement AI, what would you say are some key success metrics or things that they need to put into place to be successful with AI implementation?
My first advice is start small. Since take a problem there is a real problem, like define the problem. To your point, right? Asking the client the right question and see if there is a technology fit there. And once you identify that, able to recommend a solution. And then when you talk about metrics, right? It's a billion-dollar question, right? You have social media that captures every data point, but if tomorrow somebody asks, what's my ROI on like Facebook versus Reddit, right? It's like it's not that easy, right?
Yeah.
The same thing with any technology. You use technology for marketing versus process improvement. The ROI is different. The metrics are different, right? There is always this adoption curve. I remember very well that in the past, when we used to implement technology, we would say, like, give us 6 months lead time before we can answer any question. No, like companies would come and say, and those were the days when things were not this straightforward. For example, my first speech recognition system, it took me like 8 months to develop that whole thing. And we said 6 months, nobody's talking. We are going to just observe. Then we are going to come up with our findings. Then we talk about fine tuning. So there's always this adoption curve within an outside organization. Here, like social media, right? When you talk about technology, it influences with internal and external stakeholders also, right? It's not as simple as I'm enabling a person in my organization, but are there any clients that get affected? Sometimes they don't want to meet where you want to meet. So my classic example is chatbots. A lot of companies think, I have a chatbot, I can automate all these things, but you lose the personal touch.
Right.
Especially small and medium businesses. They live and grow on personal touch. And that's the value they offer to the customers, right? So we cannot go and say, doesn't matter. You have a beautiful chatbot that can answer all the questions. Everything will be fine. No, that's not the way it works. So how do you strike the balance? So defining the problem and applying the technology at the right level, at the right time. That's how we.
And what you're describing and what we do is you're leading with a problem-solving mindset to identify the problem before you solve it. And, it's a skill that, frankly, it took me a long time to really hone and develop this skill to be able to see through the weeds to get to the actual issue with clients when they themselves can't see it. And so I'm curious, when you're working with students and young professionals who don't have the, years of experience, how do you help them start to develop this problem solving and strategic, creative problem solving mindset at a young age?
That's a great question. I served in corporate for quite some time. I was very fortunate to be in front of clients from day one. So as much as I was a technologist, I was also on the business side. So I would always call myself a marketing engineer. So, right? As you rightly said, right, it takes years to develop a methodology to define the problem, right? So, and when my approach is very simple, I always have 3 interactions with clients. So the first interaction is introduction. Like somebody introduces me, I introduce, we talk about like what we do, what they do. The second, call is my most important call, where I spend 1 to 2 hours. There are times when I spend 2 hours. I ask a very simple question. Describe what's happening with your business. Right? So the company is talking about like, this is what's happening, this is what we did, this is how. So then I'm able to, like, to your point, right? Again, translate that to like 5 or 6 different problem statements. Then for each of those, identify what it takes in terms of resources, cost, time to solve the problem. So that's the approach that I have taken. And yeah, it is time consuming, but it is effective. So what I do is, when anyone who works at the Center for Business Analytics is like working in a real job for various reasons. Number one, students come from all backgrounds. I have undergrads to post PhDs. They come from different disciplines, applied mathematics to economics. Right? So it's almost like working in an office. Second, third thing is when I'm talking with the clients, I always engage the students early on so they can observe what they're doing. And I give them that freedom to do whatever they want. I say, when we walk into the conference room to talk with the client, we are all part of the same team. I tell them like there's no like director, there's no analyst, nothing. We are part of the same team trying to solve a business problem, right? So that opens up that I'm like literally empowering them to ask questions. If something goes wrong, I'm there. You can fall back on me. But trust me, you have to ask questions. So that's the starting point. Over the course of time, what I do is I let them take the lead on it. They develop the solution, they develop the deck to be presented. Toward like 6 to 8 months, if on an average project, by the end of the 6 to 8 month time period, the students are so comfortable, like talking with the clients, presenting the ideas, asking questions. So that becomes a natural progression instead of saying, these 2 weeks, you will focus on learning X. So that has been my approach, and that seemed to have worked well.
Yeah, I take a very similar approach, and it's challenging. I've been talking to a lot of friends in different industries, and they're like, we're hearing from employees that they don't feel trained enough. Like they need like documented process and things in writing. And I agree with that to a certain extent, depending on the job and the industry. However, in a consulting role that you're in or that I'm in, where we're really trying to dig deeper, to me, it's not something that can really be documented. It is an intuition. You have to learn how to read the room. You have to know the questions to ask based on the responses that you're receiving. It's a real time, this like instantaneous problem solving on the go. You have to be able to assess in real time risk, reward, right? And it's challenging, but to your point, I've even experienced after between probably 5 to 8 months, that's when our team really starts to kind of incorporate learnings that they've learned from me and how I've handled these situations, peppered in with their own spice and experience and personality, which I love, and do it better than me, and that's where I think been the biggest struggle is because that does take time. I mean, think about any organization to invest 8 months of salary, benefits, et cetera, into a human being, and then maybe it doesn't work out, or it does work out, but that's 8 months of something. And so I'm interested to see how the future growth trajectory works for folks in specific consulting industries where the tangible written process document training isn't really as applicable.
That's it. See, on that note, there are two things I remember. Number one, there was a quote from Jeff Bezos. He talked about, like, Amazon is supposed to be a data-driven company. They talk about being the earliest adopters of analytics, AI, and so on. So somebody asked him, like, his approach toward decision making. I think he said, all of my best decisions in business or in life has been made with heart, intuition, and gut, not analysis. That's what he said. So that is so true, and that comes from years of experience, right? Understanding what we're doing. To your point, right, in terms of how do you establish and how do you grow? Not to. There's a book that really like sort of influenced me, not influenced, like definitely got me thinking was the book called The Firm. It talks about the growth of McKinsey, not in terms of what they did, what they did not do, but in terms of the organization, like how each leadership took a different approach in terms of first, like how they wanted and invented this thing. Somebody talked about defining a foundation or laying a foundation, a framework in towards problem solving. And the third leadership talks about expansion and growth. And fourth is combining all these principles, right? So we are all doing in some shape or form, right? Right. And again, we don't know what the future holds, but we are in an interesting time where creators are going to win the battle, right? Like when people talk about being creative, being able to invent things, it's not about reading a book and coming up with things. It's like spark of ideas. It's like wandering, right? It's not about looking through the lens of a strategic plan or through the lens of technology. It's about like how can you solve a problem in the best way possible using what you have. So I think that's going to be the future.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said earlier about curiosity. And I'm going to steal that from you because that is any person that I have worked with, the most successful have been the most curious.
Uh, in personally, I think there are two things, right? Like first of all, curiosity and willing to learn, right?
Mm.
One of the like in a startup, right? I'm sure we all made several mistakes.
Mhm.
I can't even like if that would be a book by itself, right?
Never. Five today.
So I always tell people, like I said, there is never a day where I go to bed and saying, what did I not screw up? Even when I'm telling students like or analysts who work at the center, like don't be afraid to ask questions. Like trust me, I like I ask a lot of dumb questions. Like, but that's what makes me like understand things better, right? That's what happens. Now, the reason I'm saying is like people are afraid to make mistakes. Number one,
Mm.
people are I think the general perception is I want to be perfect, right? Like I have to do something right in the first place. It's not going to happen. And my favorite example is imagine if you look around, right? If all the rocks were round, all the trees were conical, and everything was picture perfect, like would you have appreciated nature the way we appreciate today? The imperfections makes the nature what it is. Imperfection makes people what they are. And that's the beauty.
Yeah. I think that's so beautiful. And honestly, my last question for you to wrap up this podcast was, what advice would you give to young students, budding entrepreneurs, and small business owners? And I think you may have just answered that question, but
Yeah.
what are some things that you say to some young folks that are just kind of entering their own world as a young professional?
So the three different groups, right? Now, let me start with students. I think for students, I would say um, they need to seek a deep understanding of anything and everything, the concepts, right? So they have to do that. And they always have to remember knowledge is power,
Mm-hmm.
right? As far as budding entrepreneurs are concerned, I would say they are at the cusp of this business and technology revolution. Be a part of it. For small business owners, embrace technology. You are the next set of disruptors.
Yeah. Stay hungry, stay curious, keep learning.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Nagaraj, just thank you so much. I love the work that you're all doing at the Center for Business Analytics and UNH. I've been so honored to get to speak at UNH in a couple different conferences and get to have you in my corner. And likewise, if anyone is interested in connecting with Nagaraj, he will be tagged on all of our social posts about this podcast. And if you're interested in learning more about the Center for Business Analytics, please reach out to him. I'm sure he'd be happy to chat with you. Nagaraj, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure getting to chat with you again.
Thank you, Rachel, for this opportunity and also having this very broad, open conversation.
Of course.
And as you rightly said, we all are here to serve our businesses, serve our communities, and we meet quite often. We participate in so many events, and I look for enhancing our collaboration.
Absolutely. For those who tuned into the mill, thank you so much. Until next time.